So, hello and welcome to our fourth session of the Buddha Book Club. We're going to be continuing our reading and discussion of Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Art of Living. If you are joining after this live stream is already ended and watching the recording, please do move ahead to the 10-minute mark, which is when we will officially get started with the reading and discussion. Welcome, glad that you're here. And I look forward to this practice together. Hey there, Liz. Welcome. We are going to be reading from uh, the first chapter. We're still continuing on the first chapter. Hello, Liz and Maddie and Rebecca. Hello there, Lily and Katal. Welcome in. And Nino. Hi, Nino. I'm doing all right. So we will start in let's see, we will start in 6 minutes. Yeah, I also like these backgrounds. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and that's a Kuan Yin, Pusa, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. So she kind of accompanies us and supports us in our practice together. This embodiment of compassion. No, I didn't. I didn't take this picture. This is just a picture I find online. Hello, Charity and Vanessa and Asha. For those watching on YouTube, is the audio coming in clearly? Is everything all right, technical wise? Or maybe if anyone has seen the YouTube. Okay, they say yes, so that's good. Hello, Chesh. Nice to have you here. Hello, Fran, watching on YouTube. Just 3 more minutes before we officially begin with our Buddha Book Club Part 4. Yes. No, for Thich Nhat Hanh's writings, it's kind of each passage and each time is a teaching in itself. So you don't really need to have any background. You didn't have to read up until now to follow along. It shouldn't be, yeah, it shouldn't be any kind of inconvenience. Everything is going to be explained and laid out very clearly. So you don't have to worry about, you don't need to bring any intellectual thought to the table. All all will be revealed naturally, without effort. So just 1.5 more minutes until we begin. I encourage everyone to get settled. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can just say hello and kind of let your presence be known. On Discord, of course, we can kind of all see each other. We can see who's here, but for the people watching on YouTube, we don't, we can't necessarily see that you're here. And it's always nice to know who's joining, who's here. Okay, nice to see you, Chesh. Oh, so we have Robert and Sandy over on YouTube. That's great. Welcome in, Robert and Sandy. Okay, so with the sound of the bell, we will now officially begin our part 4 of the Buddhist book club. So I'm very happy for everyone who is here joining us as we are live, everyone in the Discord, and also, of course, we having some people, Mei Li, also watching through YouTube. So we have a good group today, and uh, we'll start just with a few moments of settling, a few moments of meditation. So take a moment to adjust your position, adjust your posture. Take a moment to get comfortable in your body. Perhaps close your eyes if you like. And take 2 or 3 very deep conscious breaths at your own pace. Really breathing very deeply, fully, wholeheartedly. Breathing in this way, really bringing the mind home to the body. Breathing and noticing, being aware of the body right now. And as we focus on our breath, as we give more attention to our breath, breathing sincerely, with each breath we can settle and calm and ground ourselves more and more into the presence of the body right now. And bringing up the intention, the question of, why am I here? What is my reason for studying the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh? What is my reason for practicing a meditation? So we find that kind of intention and we breathe it in. We plant that seed of our sincerity and our intention, planting that seed in the heart. With each breath, settling more and more, anchoring into this, not necessarily the present experience, but our willingness, our awareness in this present, to really be here, to really show up without any justification, without any ideal of how it should be or how it could be, but to anchor into our heart, into our breath, and our sincerity. And whatever we feel right now, just feeling it. No judgment, no confusion, just feeling whatever we happen to be feeling. So, let's begin with our Buddhist book club, our exploration, our reading, our discussion of Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Art of Living. We're still in chapter 1, and we are on the section, on the paragraph entitled, How Old Will You Be in Heaven? As we read through this book, as we listen from the heart, as we explore the teachings, you are encouraged to maintain this kind of breathing and being aware. And so, our responsibility during this practice together is to practice. And then we are also listening deeply and perhaps discussing or sharing something that comes up as we read through it. So, as we begin, would anyone like to volunteer to read a paragraph, to read a section? Up until now, I've been doing most of the reading, but if we have someone who's ready and prepared to step into the limelight, this is your chance. This is your opportunity. Do we have any volunteers to read this section? Okay, so maybe not. Maybe so, maybe not. Okay, so I will continue to read, and we will start with this section of How old will you be in heaven? In our Buddhist Peace Delegation Office in Paris in the 1970s, there was an English woman who volunteered to help us in our work. Although she was over 70 years old, she was in very good health, and every morning she would climb up the 5 flights of stairs to our office. She was Anglican and had a very strong faith. She firmly believed that after she died, she would go to heaven, where she would be reunited with her very kind and handsome husband, who had died when he was 33. One day I asked her, "After you die and go to heaven and meet your husband again, will he be 33 or 70 or 80? And how old will you be?" "It would be strange for you, over 70, to meet him at 33. Sometimes our faith is very simple." Let me just read that previous part again. One day I asked her, "After you die and go to heaven and meet your husband again, will he be 33 or 70 or 80? And how old will you be?" "It would be strange for you, over 70, to meet him at 33. Sometimes our faith is very simple. She was confused because she had never asked herself that question. She had just assumed that they would meet again. With the insight of interbeing, the insight that we inter-are with one another and with all life, we don't need to wait to meet our beloved ones again in heaven. They are still right here with us. So, kind of a very beautiful answer to the question of birth and death and how we deal with loss. I really love Thich Nhat Hanh's take here and how he teaches about this, because it's very much according to the Buddhist understanding, the literal kind of Buddhist understanding, and it's also so compassionate. It's so wonderful to teach in that way and to think about it in that way. And we understand that it's not kind of like a flowery answer to the question, but it is literally what we understand is the truth, the reality in Buddhist thought. This reality of interbeing, this reality of impermanence. Anyone like to share about that? Share something or ask a question? So you said that from your experience, everyone kind of has their own idea of what?
What is heaven like?
Hmm,
Almost everyone I speak to has a different idea.
hmm,
Very, I wouldn't say obsessed, but very enthralled by that idea.
okay. And we continue with this idea, this concept of loss and the Buddhist response to loss, our understanding of loss, um, in this next section entitled Nothing is Lost. There are those who believe that an eternal self continues to exist after the body disintegrates. We could call this belief a kind of eternalism. Others believe that after death there is nothing. This is a kind of nihilism. We need to avoid both of these extremes. The insight of impermanence and interbeing tells us there cannot be an eternal separate self. And the first law of thermodynamics, the law of conversion of energy, tells us that nothing can be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. So it's not scientific to believe that after our body decomposes, we become nothing. So to go back a little bit about the insight of impermanence and interbeing tells us there cannot be an eternal separate self. So this is the insight, this is the experience of whatever comes up, whatever arises, passes away. Anything that exists, anything that comes into being, has within it the seed of its own ending. And so there's this kind of insight when we practice a meditation, when we look into our experience, it's very kind of subtle. It's gross and subtle, I would say, at the same time. But things are coming up and going away constantly. And we feel that because there's like an apparent form, because something looks like a chair, or because a story in our life feels so real, feels like all these things have connected and there's this real story. Um, Whatever it is, it's not permanent. It is a arising and passing away of experience, of phenomena, moment to moment. And so when we practice meditation and we experience that very consistently, that painful states come up and go away, that pleasurable states come up and go away, that you can even have like almost like a waking dream. You are awake and you're having this dream, almost like hallucination, and it's so real and it's so, it's the most important thing of your life at that moment. And then the next moment, just like that, it's gone. So there's this insight into impermanence that all of our experiences are carrying within them by the very nature of their coming up and being. They are carrying within them their ending. So the insight of impermanence is not to believe in this, not to understand it, not to have an idea about it, but to experience it directly. And as we experience it directly, naturally, our mind and our perspective and our approach changes. Secondly, this insight of interbeing, so that nothing is separate from anything else. The most direct way to maybe see it or to understand it is a tree or a flower. There is no such thing as a tree. There is no existence of a tree separate from the soil and the water and the air. Even more so, not just in one moment, not just in the present, that there's no separation between a tree and the soil, that if you take a tree out of the soil, that it will die, but that the tree is the soil. The tree is time. The tree is gravity. The tree is all cause and effect up to this point that is expressing as a tree. But it's also not particularly a tree. It is interbeing. It is interconnected. And we can experience this in our own practice, that it's one thing after another. There's this constant, immediate interrelationship with all of our experiences coming together. So now, for example, I am the speaker, you are the listener, whatever that you is, whatever that this I is, but we don't exist separate from one another. And I am only the speaker because you are the listener. You're only the listener because I happen to be the speaker at this moment. So we're kind of relying on one another. We are uh, in this state of interbeing, of interconnectedness, and there's no way to get out of that. There's no way to uh, change that. That's why it is a insight, because it's an experience. It doesn't matter if we believe in it or not. So the insight of impermanence and interbeing tells us there cannot be an eternal separate self, because we don't experience anything that is eternal. Everything that we experience is arising and passing away. And also, we do not experience or know about anything that is separate from anything else. So This insight of impermanence and interbeing tells us there cannot be an eternal separate self. And the first law of thermodynamics, the law of conservation of energy, tells us that nothing can be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. So in our meditation, we're not working to destroy our suffering. We are transforming our relationship to this moment. And in that way, everything is convenient. Everything is suitable. Everything is ideal. Because we are transforming, not to destroy, not to create, but to transform. So it's not scientific to believe that after our body decomposes, we become nothing. While we are alive, our life is energy. And after death, we continue to be energy. That energy is continually changing and transforming. It can never be lost. We cannot assert that after death there is nothing. Something can never become nothing. If we have lost someone who is very close to us and we are grieving, the concentrations on emptiness and signlessness help us look deeply and see the ways in which they still continue. So these concentrations on emptiness and signlessness are in some way concentrations on this intimacy of breathing and being aware, without objectivity, without objectifying our experience. So no signs, no objects. And also to not find a self in this experience, to not separate anything, to not have the observer, but just to practice a kind of breathing and being aware. And to concentrate on that state of awareness and intimacy rather than a thinking and thought. So if we have lost someone who is very close to us and we are grieving, the concentrations on emptiness and signlessness help us look deeply and see the ways in which they still continue. Our loved one is still alive within us and around us. They are very real. We have not lost them. It is possible to still recognize them in a different form, or in even more beautiful forms than in the past. In the light of emptiness and interbeing, we know they have not died or disappeared. They continue in their actions and in us. We can still talk to them. We can say something like, I know you are there. I am breathing for you. I am smiling for you. I am enjoying looking around with your eyes. I am enjoying life with you. I know that you are still there very close to me, and that now you continue in me. And Thich Nhat Hanh really encourages us to practice in this way, to walk with our loved one, to invite them to join us in mindful walking, to invite them to join us in mindful breathing, and to speak to them, to speak to that person. I know you are there. I am breathing for you. I am smiling for you. I am enjoying looking around with your eyes. I am enjoying life with you. I know that you are still there very close to me, and that now you continue in me. Anyone like to share about this nothing is lost, this teaching on death, the Buddhist understanding of a death, or perhaps the lack thereof.
I might have something complicated to say. I'll try to make it simple. Um, suddenly for no reason, the scene from Alice in Wonderland plays in my head when you were reading that, and how Epsilon became a butterfly, and you're just saying it's neither the extreme of nihilism nor an imagination of becoming a spirit or an afterlife, though the book doesn't say something about renouncing these two extremes, but it's just not focusing on them. And so it seems what is most important is having a worldview like things will eventually take another form, whatever it is, and that form has some kind of consciousness for sure. Because basically, also scientifically, I kept hearing that for years. You are made of the same material uh, that stars are made of, and the soil is made of. I think it was Carl Sagan, if I'm not wrong.
Thank you, Charity. That was very nice. Anyone else like to share something?
For the past few months, I have added it to my morning routine to take some time to talk to my ancestors and departed loved ones. And I also sometimes talk to them throughout my day when something reminds me of them or I see something that I think they would appreciate. And it gives me so much peace to talk to them all the time. And it does feel like they're there. So I really liked these last couple passages. They feel very close to home.
Thank you, Chesh. So this next section here is something that Charity kind of alluded to. I don't know, Charity, if you're looking ahead, but this next
I can see
section,
the book.
wonderful. This next section is entitled Life Force. We do have
That will
Mei
be interesting.
Li. We do have Mei Li, who's sharing something in the YouTube live chat and says, how I cope with loss is accepting that they were also human. We tend to idolize the lost ones. Truth is, they have surely made mistakes, but they've tried their best, just like every other person. Thank you, Mei Li. So this next section here, life force. If there is no boss, no owner, no actor behind our actions, and no thinker behind our thoughts, then why do we have this sense of self? In Buddhist psychology, the part of our consciousness that has a tendency to create a sense of self is known in Sanskrit as manas. Manas is equivalent to what Sigmund Freud in psychoanalysis called the ID. Manas manifest from deep in our consciousness. It is our survival instinct, and it always urges us to avoid pain and seek pleasure. These manas, or these subtle energies, keep saying, "This is me. This is my body. This is mine." Because manas is unable to perceive reality clearly. Manas try to protect and defend what it mistakenly thinks is a self. But this is not always good for our survival. Manas cannot see that we are made of only non-us elements, and that what it considers to be a self is not actually a separate entity. Manas cannot see that it is wrong view of a self, Manas cannot see that its wrong view of a self can bring us a lot of suffering and prevent us from living happily with freedom. Contemplating the interconnectedness between our body and our environment, we can help manas transform its delusion and see the truth. We don't need to get rid of manas. Manas is a natural part of life. The reason manas call this body me and mine is because one of manas's roles is to maintain our life force. This life force is what the 20th century French philosopher Henri Bergson called élan vital. Like all species, we have a will to live and a strong desire to cling to and protect our life, and to defend ourselves from danger. But we have to be cautious not to let our instinct of self-preservation and auto-defense mislead us into thinking we have a separate self. The insight of interbeing and no self can help us make use of our life force, what Freud called sublimation, to take action in life to help and protect others, to forgive and to reconcile, and to help and protect the earth. I remember I once left a piece of ginger in a corner in my hermitage, and I didn't tend to it. But then one day I discovered that it had sprouted. The stem of ginger was giving rise to a plant of ginger. There was life within it. The same thing can happen with a potato. Everything has this vitality of wanting to go forward and be continued. This is very natural. Everything wants to live. So I put the ginger in a pot with some earth and let it grow. When a woman becomes pregnant, there is already a life force driving that child's development. The life force of the mother and of the fetus are neither the same nor different. The life force of the mother enters the child, and the life force of the child enters the mother. They are one, and little by little they separate from each other. But sometimes we think that when the baby is born, it is as if the child now has a separate self, as its body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness are different from those of the mother. We may think that we can separate the child from the mother, but the truth is that there remains a relationship of continuation. Looking at the child, we see the mother, and looking at the mother, we see the child. So simply because things appear to be separate doesn't necessarily mean that they are. Simply because we have this energy, this desire to seek pleasure and avoid pain, doesn't necessarily mean that that's how we always need to conduct ourselves. Practice your mother's hand. Remember the times you were sick with a fever when you were a little boy or girl, or a little person. Remember how awful it felt to be so sick. But then your mother or father, or perhaps a grandparent or grandperson, would put their hand on your burning forehead, and it felt so wonderful. You could feel the nectar of love in their hand, and that was enough to comfort and reassure you. Just knowing they were there, beside you, brought relief. If you do not live close to your mother anymore, or if your mother is no longer present in her usual bodily form, you have to look deeply to see that she is in fact always with you. You carry your mother in every cell of your body. Her hand is still in your hand. If your parents have already passed away and you practice looking deeply like this, you can have an even closer relationship with your parents than that of someone whose parents are still alive but who cannot communicate easily with them. You may like to take a moment now to look at your hand. Can you see your mother's hand in your hand, or your father's, or a grand person? Look deeply into your hand. With this insight, and with all the love and care of your parents, bring your hand up to your forehead and feel the hand of your loving parent touching your forehead. Allow yourself to be cared for by your parents within you. They are always within you. So this is an exercise that we'll take a moment to do. So we can all kind of look at our hand and we look into our hand very deeply and see if we can find our mother's or father's or grand person's hand, or perhaps the hand of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Can be anyone. This embodiment of compassion, of care. Really looking deeply into our hand. See compassion and care and kindness and tenderness and power in your hand. Just like a mother protecting and caring for her child, this kind of love and tenderness in your hand. And then slowly bringing your hand up to your forehead, And feel this hand of a parent or this hand of compassion allow yourself to be cared for by that compassion within you, by that loving patience within you, by that gentleness within you. Breathing in that compassion. And our practice is to keep this hand nearby, to keep this spirit nearby to us, and never to hesitate or to be shy about allowing ourselves to be cared for by those parents within us or by those loving teachers, that compassion, our own inner strength within us. That is always with us. That is always accessible. And it is always what we should do, to be compassionate, to be patient, to be loving, especially to ourselves. Anyone like to share about this exercise or this approach, this way of thinking, this part of the reading? So this next section here is entitled Living Beings. We have a tendency to distinguish between animate and inanimate life forms. But observation shows there is life force even in the objects we call inanimate. Life force and consciousness are in a stem of ginger or in an acorn. The ginger knows how to become a plant, and the acorn knows how to become an oak tree. We cannot call these things inanimate because they know what to do. Even a subatomic particle or a speck of dust has vitality. There is no absolute dividing line between animate and inanimate, between living matter and inert matter. In so-called inert matter, there is life, and living beings are dependent on so-called inert matter. If we took the so-called inanimate elements out of you and me, we would not be able to live. I really like that. That's a very, I never heard it brought up that way, but we do tend to think of, well, water is not a being. You know, water is like, not like a me, it's not living. But if we didn't have water, we would we would be inanimate. We would be as inanimate as water is, literally. Um, so that's really, I like how Thich Nhat Hanh says that. In so-called inert matter there is life, and living beings are dependent on so-called inert matter. If we took the so-called inanimate elements out of you and me, we would not be able to live. We are made of non-human elements. This is what is taught in the Diamond Sutra, an ancient Buddhist text that could be considered the world's first treatise on deep ecology. We cannot draw a hard distinction between human beings and other living beings, or between living beings and inert matter. There is vitality in everything. The entire cosmos is radiant with vitality. If we see the earth as just a block of matter lying outside of us, then we have not yet truly seen the earth. We need to be able to see that we are a part of the earth, and to see that the entire earth is in us. The earth is also alive. It has intelligence and creativity. If the earth were inert matter, it could not give birth to countless great beings, including the Buddha, Jesus Christ, Muhammad, and Moses. The earth is also mother to our parents and to us. Looking with the eyes of non-discrimination, we can establish a very close relationship with the earth. So looking with the eyes of non-discrimination, that is, looking with the eyes of not picking and choosing, not judging, not these eyes of picking and choosing can become, this is what becomes these eyes of nastiness, these eyes of judgment, these eyes of harshness, these eyes of negativity and judgment. So looking with the eyes of non-discrimination, non-picking and choosing, we can establish a very close relationship with the earth. We look at the earth with our heart and not the eyes of cold reasoning. You are the planet, and the planet is you. The well-being of your body is not possible without the well-being of the planet. And that is why, to protect the well-being of your body, we must protect the well-being of the planet. This is the insight of emptiness. Are you the soulmate of the Buddha? At the time of the Buddha, there were countless religious and spiritual teachers, each advocating a different spiritual path and practice, and each claiming their teachings were the best and the most correct. One day, a group of young people came to ask the Buddha, Of all these teachers, whom should we believe? Don't believe anything, not even what I tell you, replied the Buddha. Even if it's an ancient teaching, even if it's taught by a highly revered teacher, you should use your intelligence and critical mind to carefully examine everything you see or hear. And then put the teaching into practice to see if it helps liberate you from your suffering and your difficulties. If it does, you can believe in it. If we want to be a soulmate of the Buddha, we need to have a discriminating, critical mind like this. If we do not allow our beliefs to evolve, if we do not maintain an open mind, we risk waking up one day to discover that we have lost faith in what we once believed. This can be devastating. As practitioners of meditation, we should never accept anything on blind faith, regarding it as absolute, unchanging truth. We should investigate and observe reality with mindfulness and concentration, so our understanding and faith can deepen day by day. This is the kind of faith we cannot lose, because it is not based on ideas or beliefs, but on experienced reality. So at this time, let's take a moment to adjust our posture, and we will take up the practice of experiencing reality. We take up the practice of our meditation. So we will practice meditation together, beginning and ending with the sound of the bell. So the bell will strike 3 times to begin, and then 3 times to end. Bringing our hands together, repeating after me. May all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May all beings be free of suffering. May I accept, let go of, give up all benefits from this practice. May I accept, let go of, give up, detach from all expectations. May I be at peace right here, right now. May those who are around me be at peace right here, right now. May all beings throughout space and time be totally and completely at peace. May it be so. May it be so. May it really be so. Sadhu. 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 Okay, my friends, thank you all for joining. Please take care of yourselves and enjoy the rest of your day, evening. And don't be shy about bringing your practice into your life. Okay, see you again soon. This
Thanks
concludes
so much, Bante.
part 4 of our Buddhist book club.
It was really wonderful.
Yeah, it's great to see everyone.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay, YouTubers, take care of yourself. See you again sometime soon.